Hi, I'm Sade, and on this sweaty day in July, we're talking about Sherry Thomas, and not even specifically this book, which is a study in Scarlet Women and is the first in her Sherlock Holmes series. I don't know if that's focusing at all, but just Sherry Thomas in general, in terms of the genius of Sherry Thomas. Now, I actually met her I'm going to say September, because I'm part of the Toronto Romance Writers group, which is part of RWA, which is the Romance Writers of America, and we had our annual conference, and it's called like the Northern Hearts Conference, and she was giving a masterclass as the first, like the opening of the conference, for which of course I was late because I'm late for everything. And so it started at 10. I probably got there at like 10:30 or something, and she was already, you know, halfway through, and I took some notes, and she was talking about writing emotion into your books and stuff, and it was a really good talk. The half that I heard was extremely good, and this was, you know, everybody had a free copy of this book at the table, and so, you know, I took my copy. I then actually spoke to her again during the I think during dinner. I went up to the buffet table and she was already there, and we just had a quick conversation, and she's really lovely, and she lives in Texas. And so I think we were talking about, I don't know what was happening at the time, I can't remember, but we were talking about police brutality, you know, in the US, and I was kind of like, Texas is like surely ground zero, because I think the Deep South, and I think strange fruit, and that kind of thing. And then there was another author who's from South Africa, and she was like, well, you know, our country, apartheid. And I was like, well, I'm from Britain, and you know, they colonized half the world and were one of the biggest, you know, sort of players in transatlantic slavery, and yet they think they're not racist. So we're way behind you guys. We haven't even got to acknowledging anything yet. So anyway, we just had this quick conversation. She was lovely, and then, you know, I took this book home and didn't put it, you know, on my bookshelf, and didn't touch it again, because I'm a slow reader, and I have a lot of different books, and I prioritize the books that I'm wanting to read, and so anything that somebody just gives me goes to the bottom of the pile. And then March happened, and there was this pandemic, and we were all under lockdown, and I was like, you know, the libraries were closed, the bookshops were closed, and I'm like, okay, what can I read? And I'm looking around my apartment, and I'm like, oh, Sherry Thomas, A Study in Scarlet Women. So I picked it up, and I'm like, you know, let me read. I'm not a big fan of mysteries, because I don't have the patience for figuring out. One, I don't like delayed gratification, like that whole waiting to who did it. I don't have the patience for it, and I hate these long descriptions that mystery books have to have in order to lay the, you know, the groundwork for, you know, you understanding how it's all going to unfold. So I'm like, okay, let me give it a try. And you know, it's got romantic elements in it, which is why she was at a romance writers conference, and also she writes romance books. But I read the first few pages, and I was just sucked in immediately, completely engaged, because her writing is incredible. It's a series about, you know, this woman called Sherlock Holmes, who comes from, I would say, like an upper crust family in the 1900s in Britain, who have not done very well with their money, and they're basically running out, and now they're just keeping up appearances, really, and they need to marry off the daughters of the family because they can't afford to keep them anymore. And so I think Charlotte's the youngest daughter, and she's autistic, and she's got this incredible gift. She's basically a genius for solving puzzles and riddles and that kind of thing, and she's got no interest in marriage, and so she finds a way to commit an indiscretion so that she's ostracized from polite society, and no man will be interested in marrying her, and then she basically sets herself up as Sherlock Holmes, and starts solving mysteries to make some money. Honestly, I think of it as Agatha Christie meets Jane Austen, because this deeply involved mystery that's intricate and cleverly woven with layers to it, and then you've got all the social mannerisms and the class hierarchy and the, you know, social interactions and all that kind of thing of this, you know, historical Britain. And both of these things are happening at the same time, and they're both equally well sort of described, and it's fantastic. I mean, imagine if you had Pride and Prejudice, and there's a murder that happens halfway through, and then Elizabeth solves it while also, you know, trying to figure out the marriage market of the Regency period. That's what this book is it just manages to do a lot of things at the same time, and all of them incredibly well. It's like an academic has written this book in terms of the level of research. How were clothes printed at that time? How were goods imported from, you know, other countries? And kudos to the research man, hats off, because it takes work. And then to do that research and insert it in a way that feels that progresses the plot and doesn't feel overwhelming, like you're not hammered with details, but everything happens exactly when it should. So good. With mysteries, you need to understand all the background characters, because any of these people could be a suspect. Like, every character feels very rich and very well developed, but without you feeling overburdened in terms of learning about who all of these people are. There's actually 5 books in the series so far. Again, I'm not a fast reader, and I'm on book 4 because I'm just like, I have to know what's going to happen. So things get solved within the book, but there's also mysteries that continue throughout the whole series, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where's the next book? What happens next? What happens with this character? How's that going to tie in with this thing? So good, like crack. So one of the things that she mentioned during her talk was that she immigrated to the US when she was 13, and I don't know if she learned English when she was in China or when she got to the US, but basically it is her second language, and that is mind-blowing because her writing is incredible. And so people who only have one language and still struggle to write in it, and I'm just like, and you're writing in your second language. I don't write in books and stuff like that, but I want to pull out a highlighter and be like, oh my gosh, this line that she's written here, the way that she's expressed this person's feelings, and just, you know, things that the way she writes, sometimes it's so evocative and so visceral, where you're like, I feel it. I feel the thing that you just told me about this person, like it's touched me right here. I also really want to read The Ballad of Mulan. So basically she wrote the novel version of the new live action Mulan that's going to be, well, supposed to come out during the summer, and I'm not sure where they've pushed it back to, but you know, she said that she did tons of research on like 5th century China for that, and I just know it's going to be fantastic. So I'm so excited. I really want to read that next. So in conclusion, what is your takeaway? Go to your bookshop and buy everything by Sherry Thomas, because she's incredible and your life will be better for it. Your skin will clear up, your relationships will be fantastic, and your future will be bright. The first book in this series is A Study in Scarlet Women, but honestly, Sherry Thomas is a friggin' legend, and you should read everything that she has out there. You're welcome.